Good afternoon, Richland College.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back. It is the Philosophy Club Radio Hour. That 2 to 3 Wednesday pleasurable experience. And I should say you are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We're the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show are our own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the Dallas County Community College District, otherwise known as, guys, the DCCCD.
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 Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out Richland College.
Yeah.
Shout
excellent.
out.
Well, here we are once again, guys. We've got some newbies, we've got some returners, and yeah, we've got myself, of course. So let's do what we like to do and go ahead and start from all the way in the back. Who's that old friend?
Hey, it's me, Ali.
Superman?
I'm back.
Shout out Ali.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Ali. Ali was a regular in season 2. And I think season 1 as well, the last few episodes. So welcome back.
Thank you.
Who's that?
Hello, sir. Bonita Luna?
Welcome. Who do we got there?
Okay, my name is Aisha Go, and it sounds like icicle, and that's how you are going to remember me.
Ice.
Ice, ice, baby.
Yeah.
Well, actually, do you have any affiliations with other clubs on campus?
Well, yeah, I am currently the president of Honor Student Organization in the Debate Club, and I'm also active in Student Ambassadors, too.
Oh, very cool.
Thank
Well,
you.
welcome. So we have
Sure.
the cross-pollinating continues here on the Philosophy Club Radio Hour. Who's that next to you on your right there?
My name is Will Smith.
Ah.
You might know me from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I have a son, Jaden Smith. So, just dropping by, checking out the Philosophy Club. Just big things.
No, thank you. And it's great to have you here, Will. My first question is, or should I call you Fresh?
I don't take questions
Fresh.
for free.
Oh.
I don't take questions, sorry.
Well, I'll dip into the Philosophy Club budget. We have several hundreds of dollars. You were offered the lead role in Django Unchained. Why did you turn it down before Jamie Foxx? True story.
I just had to spread the wealth. Jamie, his career was going downhill. Had to spread the wealth. Maybe I'll just jump in the sequel.
There you go. Django Rechained.
Django Unboxed.
Oh, Unboxed.
Yeah.
Django Box. It's about his funeral. And who do we have to my right here?
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm probably kind of half hidden behind Professor Manzi.
Kind of my voluminous hair.
I can't tell, really. It's all good.
She will be heard and never seen.
It's okay. I'm used to it. It's so short, people make jokes that they can't see me anyway.
As a man who stands but 5'7", I appreciate those who are less
I can't
heightenedly.
touch the ground in the chair I'm sitting in right now. My feet are just dangling. I'm not even joking.
That's because she's in a high chair.
I'm like so short, guys. I'm not even 5 feet tall.
Welcome back, guys.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So yeah, Emma, of course, you guys know, is the communications officer. If you're receiving emails from the Philosophy Club, or you're checking out our Facebook page or our Twitter,
Which is what I'm doing.
it's primarily Emma there holding it down for us, and then of course we have Uche, the president of the Philosophy Club,
Uche who?
to my left.
Uh,
Oh, excuse me, Will Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, Will
Taking over.
Smith.
Pardon me.
sorry, dude.
Mr. Smith over there.
The Fresh Prince of Thunderduck Philosophy.
Fresh Prince of Richardson.
At any rate, this is the Philosophy Club, guys. You're listening to what is essentially an extension of the Philosophy Club proper. The Philosophy Club proper this semester meets every Tuesday from 2 to 3 p.m., generally in room EO 76. Yesterday we were in EO 32. Totally my bad. Y'all dropped the ball on that. But hope we did some damage control. We put a sign up so everybody knew where to find us. There's a couple more times this semester where we'll be in EO 32. I just don't have the dates handy. But generally look for us in EO 76. And of course on Wednesdays we record this Philosophy Club Radio Hour in EO 11. EO 11. That's KDUX Studios. Guys, I know we're recording an episode live right now, and we had a rather interesting Philosophy Club meeting on Tuesday that I'll have to have you fill me in, Uche, because and Emma,
Oh, yeah.
after I left. But I will say this: uploaded recently, KDUX Studios pried open the vault, dusted off a real jewel for us. There is, ladies and gentlemen, the Lost Philosophy Club episode. You can currently find it on www.richlandstudentmedia.com. Folks, it is the pilot podcast. The very first attempt to record a Philosophy Club radio hour. It was not videotaped was only audio, and we never released it because it's so great. And now we are going to, it has officially been released. So it's the Lost Chapter. If you go to our YouTube playlist, you'll notice that it goes from Philosophy Club 1 to Philosophy Club 3. In reality, Philosophy Club 1 is Philosophy Club 2. So the
Damn.
Philosophy Club Radio, our actual original pod, is the one we've just uploaded now. Check it out. Our humble
Check it
beginnings. It's me. It's Raul. It's a person who never returned ever again. Gripping stuff, ladies and gentlemen. So check it out.
That's funny.
Shameless plug. So guys, our topic on Tuesday, this was again student generated, Emma as a matter of fact, was individual and community, more specifically how an individual relates to a community. And as long as I was there, it seemed like we were talking mostly about what is an individual and what kind of is a community. And then from there, exploring how the two relate, if one is beneficial, if there's a sort of symbiotic relationship, things along these lines. I think this actually ties in well to what was Phi Theta Kappa's overall project last year, this understanding of sort of individualism and collectivism. I think it resonated with that as well. So we did something new in the Philosophy Club for the first time ever in an effort to expand the leadership capacities of our student officers. And we'll see how this goes. I am going to be exiting the last 10 to 15 minutes of every Philosophy Club meeting going forward and leaving it to the student officers to organize things as they will and to continue on and then close out the discussion. I must admit, I exited last time. Part of this is by necessity. I have a research committee meeting over in Irving that I have to be at for like 3. So that's part. But the other part is this. I want my little fledgling thunder ducklings to fly. And little do they know this, but I was actually outside the door after I quote-unquote left last
Were
time.
you really?
I was
You're
checking
spying?
in. I was spying. And I popped back in at the very end to, give Emma the folder I forgot to give her.
Oh, that's
And
sweet.
So
That's
before
kinda cool.
so
That's
And the
not-
pen you forgot to give me?
Oh yeah, that's right. I actually meant to steal that. you called me out on it. That pink pen. So before I give you guys your individual grades, leadership-wise, and of course, together you rise and fall. I'm just joking. But I say this because I am no longer really fully equipped to give a thunder duck requack because I don't know what to requack 'cause I wasn't there. So this segment is now under the control of the student officers.
You just made this
Wow.
a whole lot more dangerous.
I feel deep. I feel strong.
Yes.
feel powerful.
My support is pending. I want that to be perfectly clear. So I guess, what y'all get into beyond, trying to identify what an individual is versus what a community is, and of course tell us about the way in which you conducted the discussion after I left. Also very interesting.
Well, I'll just start with a topic that came, I think I presented this topic, but it came early on in the meeting. And it was the idea that people are born into a situation, and because people are social animals, we look at others to mimic them, and we learn our behavior from them. We learn what's wrong and right from them. So I think that as far as an individual goes, I don't know how individual a person can actually be, because the foundation of us is laid by the people around us. So it's kind of like we are products of our environment. So does that make us individual, or does that make us just like an offspring?
Yeah.
There's
Of
this
something
saying that goes, I am 'cause we are.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. What do you take that to mean?
For example, there was these kids where their teacher told them that they had to run to catch something, and the one that catches it first gets to eat like all the fruit, something like that. So what the kids did was all of them went to
I hate fruit.
it was something like that. I can't recall. But all of them grabbed each other's hand and walked towards it so that everybody can share the fruit.
That is such an interesting analogy for what we were talking about early on in the Philosophy Club meeting. But yeah, okay. So does everybody kind of see what's going on there? It's this idea of together we can open up new horizons, new possibilities for ourselves individually that we couldn't if we only were to work by
Together.
ourselves. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's sort of, in a certain sense, kind of supports what you're saying there, Ujay. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I forgot my thunder duck whistle
Your
thing
wee
again too.
quack.
Shoot. Yeah, my quacker. But I'm sorry. Yeah. So proceed.
I should get one of those.
You can have mine. You'll probably remember it more.
Yeah, honestly. But yeah, there were a lot of things that we ended up talking about through the club. The main focuses were some of the things that Emma presented was that there are some communities that we have no choice to be a part of, like
Yeah.
based on skin color or race, things that are biological, or just things that are geological too. Like you can't choose to be an American citizen, or you can choose, but it's not something that you can debate whether you're an American citizen or not. If you are born in America and you live in America, you're an American citizen, and it's not something you can debate about. And and there's like kind of like two mediums of individualism, where it's one thing is like the physical things, the biological things, and the other one is the mindset, where if you're an American citizen but you have the mindset of a North Korean, are you still an American citizen, or are you a North Korean? Because North Korean people absolutely despise American people. But if a North Korean's like in the center of like Sacramento, is he like just random shout out Sacramento?
He'd be sacramental.
Yeah.
Hello.
I would like to add one thing to
That was terrible.
Uche's point of view.
Yes.
That sometimes it's very difficult to assimilate with the people around you, but you don't have any option for that. You have to work in an interdependent way. Otherwise, you won't be able to achieve the goals that you need to achieve by working together. So you're right when you said that it can be difficult to assimilate with different kinds of people, but you have to.
Mm-hmm.
There's
feel
no other
like-
way around.
I feel like that's nonsense because you don't choose.
Preach it.
You don't choose how you want to
Triggered.
look or your skin color. Like it all depends on the location you are born with because of the correlation of the sun. Like in in the North Pole, it's no sun, so you know you're gonna be light skinned or whatever.
I
And this
see.
is throughout like generations and generations. Like
Mm-hmm.
your ancestors, like where they used to live from. Like that's why their skin color is like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so again, and those things, I think that's a good point. I think everyone's making really strong points here.
I have a question.
Don't ever interrupt me again.
Okay,
No,
so
please go for it, Icicle.
okay, so if
Icicle.
thank you. If we can't choose anything, how
No,
are
no,
we-
just appearance wise.
okay, like okay, no.
No,
I'm
we are
gonna-
talking about the point of views, not the appearance. That's not in our control. We are just talking about our point of views that we have to adjust with other people around us.
But no, I think that's, and I want to return to that point.
Yeah.
But what were you going to say,
Yeah, what were you gonna ask?
Sickle?
Okay, so I'm taking a really interesting philosophy class.
Oh, what's it
from
called?
a professor that you wouldn't
Professor
probably
Iwata?
know.
Uche?
His name is Professor
He's a
Manzi,
good
and
Oh my god.
and
heard
we were
awesome things
like,
about
Not
him.
again.
I know. Anyways, we were talking about
kidding.
freedom and responsibility a lot lately, and I was wondering if we were like responsible for everything, like we choose to be like ourselves, right? So,
Yes.
how is that like?
Sometimes, not always.
I could argue.
People
against
change
that.
all the time. They have got different personalities.
True.
So you
Yeah.
cannot say
Like
that. It's fixed.
existentialism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good, like existentialism. So yeah, let's take all these into consideration here. On the one hand, I do appreciate this distinction between there are aspects of yourself that you cannot change because you don't really have any control over them to begin with, and then there are aspects of yourself that inevitably change. Inevitably, I always can't say that word. Inevitably change. From simply by virtue of living in time and experiencing things and having them inform or shape or
Giving
or
it
mutate.
meaning.
Yeah, giving it meaning, deepening meanings, opening up your perspectives in this way. So there's a side of you that changes, and you have to some extent control over it, and there's a side of you that doesn't. I think what Sickle's emphasizing is the Sartrean point that essentially you have to take ownership of everything that happens to you in your life. And that's very difficult to do. But then the
Yeah.
question becomes, what about, and this is your point, what about those things that have nothing to do with you? Like if you're born in the North Pole and that's where your family comes from, you
Yeah.
cannot, you cannot help but appear a certain way. Having said that, I think we see nowadays an overlap between what you can control and what was traditionally understood to be something you couldn't control. So now we have gender correction surgery. Now you have different examples of people who, and I believe this came up in the philosophy club. Shout out to the chair of my department, excellent philosophy teacher, Professor Louisa Benton, who attended the meeting yesterday.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she was fantastic. She brought up the example of the podcast that explored the woman who claimed to be one nationality or ethnicity when in fact she was.
That was Louisa Benton?
That was I
didn't know that.
Yeah, she's big reason why we have a philosophy club. So it's great when she
shout
can
out
when she can
Louisa
make it.
Benton.
Yeah.
She's my mentor.
Oh,
She's
cool.
no, right.
He's my
Mine too.
teacher.
And so the point is this, guys. What about those things? Is there anything anymore that you simply can't control?
Or your family, you can't choose them.
Oh, well, you can choose your relationship with them.
Well, that's true.
I
And-
would
yeah.
I would ask how deep the control we actually have goes, because the part that really interests me is that when you grow up, the things that you are taught are right and wrong. You can't debate against these things. You can't protest against these things. So you just take it from your parents as to be the true word. So, like, we're all, I would just assume that we're American citizens, and we're,
No, we're not.
okay, not at all. But an American citizen who
I
is
said
born,
the word.
who's born in America, and they're born and raised in America. They're taught American virtues, and then they grow up and they think that these virtues are theirs, but they've been given to them. They've been taught to them.
You've
Does it make
inherited.
them?
What
is
about what you think? Like,
Yeah, you
How
can-
much do you have? How much room do you have to think? Like, if these things have been put into you, you think on their terms. So how much room do you have to think where in like unconquered land of your mind?
Wow, that was so beautiful.
unconquered land of your mind.
That's why you're here, to think and rethink.
I don't
Hell
like
yeah,
that
Ali.
stuff.
Let them know. Well, okay, I think Uche is making a really important point here, which is how much of your beliefs are your own, and this goes back to the start point, and how
Yeah.
much of your beliefs have you just sort of inherited and just mimicked, but you don't really understand where they come from, or you don't really understand what alternatives there are to them.
Yeah, because I would think. Sorry for cutting you off, but I would think.
I'll let it slide. You're the president.
I appreciate it. I would think because most people would just assume that beating another person is wrong, but that is arguably an opinion, and it's just something that we've been taught is wrong. It's
Yeah.
something that we've been taught so much it's wrong that we believe it's wrong. It's kind of like we've been potty trained with our minds, where now we know to use the restroom in a toilet. So we know it's a bad
Toilets
analogy.
of our minds.
Yeah, the toilets of our minds. So it's kind of like how much of our thoughts are actually ours compared to how much of our thoughts were just things that we've been trained to think over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah. Did you guys, is that distinction, that's evident, right? Can we see that distinction?
That's exactly what I thought coming out of Christian church from my dad and coming out of Catholic church from my mom.
Oh, interesting.
And then, like, looking into my best friend's religion, Islamic law, and just, you know, everything. I was, like, looking deep into what the basic point of all religions, which is love. And then the Ten Commandments, to me, they're, like, basically common sense. Like,
Really?
yeah.
But see, that's what's so interesting is that the reason, I think this is kind of what Uche is getting at, the reason they're common sense is because you were raised in a culture where those general morals were constantly reinforced from a very young age. So they're common sense to you, but they might not be common sense to somebody else because you have so much uncommon with the other person. So let's talk about this idea
I
of...
actually have an interesting thought on
Totally forgot she was here.
I look over there like,
no, something about that though is that when you're born, you do have certain thoughts that are just already ingrained in you. Like a lot of children very much just want to make the people around them smile, or a lot of children learn to throw a temper tantrum on their own. Who have they been taught to throw a temper tantrum by? Who have they been taught to make somebody smile? Who have they been taught, like, the laughing, what makes them laugh, what makes them smile? So some things are naturally you as an individual
natural
too.
instincts for desires.
So yeah,
I
some
can
of that's
see
gonna
that.
be you on your own. Like each of us have a different personality. Like some of us, when we're young, we're very math-minded already, or we already want to learn to read or at an earlier age than others. Some of us more like playing with dolls, while some like playing with, I don't know.
So
something
I have a
else.
question here.
I also do.
Yeah, for the group of people who are well-learned people and are teaching their children the right values. What about the children who are not being given the proper education, the knowledge? How are we supposed to treat those individuals?
You would think that they were entitled to education, and yet I think you're right. I think for some reason that's still a question. I think Emma's point, and I want to tie it back. I think Emma's point is that if you observe babies, they do tend to react spontaneously. As you said, nobody taught them to cry. They know how to do it naturally. So there is potentially this idea of human nature.
A true self.
Yeah, or at the very least, something that is more of a species-wide thing than it is an individual thing.
But if a person,
Well, keep that in mind. You're born into a community, the human race.
like if a parent, I'll use this as an example. I don't know if left-handed or right-handedness is something that's natural, like one hand's more dominant than the other.
Yeah, I
But
don't
you
know.
know how some religions see left-handedness as like the devil. It's something that the child was naturally born with.
Wait, what? I don't know
Yeah,
that.
Is that
that was
much-
a thing. That was
Yeah,
a
it was a
thing.
thing.
They actually thought that they were possessed. There's actually
Hey,
cases
thanks
that you
for
hear
coming, Benita.
in a modern day world where a child who is writing with their left hand in kindergarten, some like teachers even hold on to that value still and
They would, like,
will
spank their
force them
hands.
to be right-handed. And
news
it's
to
still
me.
a problem. There are children born left-handed, there are children born right-handed, and there's children that are born ambidextrous and they're taught to go one way or the other. And I actually heard a reverse case one time, which is really weird. but-
Yeah, but the way I was trying to connect that is that even if I do believe that people are naturally distinguishable. They have their own factors and things. But I feel like these things can be trained out of, where if a parent dislikes what a child naturally does, like a boy's playing with dolls, but the dad sees it and says, "Hey, you shouldn't be playing with dolls. Play with these action figures."
Triggered.
Yeah, you shouldn't be playing with dolls. Play with these toy cars or something. Then they get trained out of that behavior, even if it's naturally, if they naturally find it pleasant.
Yeah.
And then they grow up based on how they've been trained, even though they had natural inclinations.
Yeah, and so it does seem like, again, your habits, again, habitos, it literally means second nature. Your habits, what you learn at a very young age when you are extremely impressionable and just open to sort of self-appropriating things, because you don't really have a sense of self. Yeah, that ends up happening where you develop tendencies that you might not have had innately. But that, I think, and this might be your point, Uche, is that you're saying, well, that means you can relearn anything, which is to say you can adapt yourself, you can become accustomed to any sort of custom, so long as it somehow resonates with you.
Or
And-
that you're willing to change.
Exactly, yeah. And usually, hopefully, those two are the same, but you're right, not always. Sometimes you try to change even when it doesn't resonate with you, because for some other reason you think it's what you need to do or have to do.
Or vice versa. Sometimes it resonates with you, but you're too stubborn to change.
Or you'll be punished if you do.
Yeah.
Like I mean, consider those who come out of the closet in a fundamentally religious household. Things like this. I want to get back to this example Uche said a minute ago, and I think it'll tie back to what Ali was saying. This idea of beating people. Everybody seems to believe that beating people is wrong. So Sunday night, I mercilessly beat Uche at a game of Mario Kart.
It was okay.
Yeah, Emma's there to witness this glory. It was okay. I know I finished in like 7th, but it was higher than him. But
Wait, y'all only got to 7?
Yeah, it
That
was- it
the
wasn't- it
best out
wasn't-
of the 2
wasn't
of
good.
It
y'all.
was.
Yeah, it was.
Really?
I think I came
Oh
in
my
like
gosh.
11th.
It was pretty
How
bad.
are y'all that bad at this Mario Kart game?
I never played that particular console. Anyways,
I played it for the first time and got first place. It's not that
Stop
hard.
bragging. You're fired.
I'm still taking you down the next time that we meet as an executive board. Yeah, the Philosophy Club officers and faculty advisor, myself.
We met and just played Mario Kart.
We met, played Mario Kart for 2 hours. It was pretty great.
We didn't talk to each other.
We
at all.
hatched a scheme as to what we're going to be doing over the next several months as a club. But I bring this up for the following reason. I'm good at Mario Kart, and I invite anybody who wants to challenge me, including you, Emma, to step up to the plate.
You're not good at Mario Kart.
That was a
I'm in.
digression.
I'm in too.
You want a rematch?
I want a rematch
All right. We'll see. The student
for
becomes
the
the teacher.
advisor position.
I get demoted to president.
I get your paycheck.
Oh, there's no paycheck.
You're working it for free?
Yeah, yes. Well, if you call this work.
Damn right.
I mean your professor paychecks.
Oh, those?
Yeah.
You'll be sorely disappointed. Much as I am. I'm just joking. I love it. Anyways, I want to get back to really with this idea that Uche was getting at of seemingly common sense, as Benito put it. You know, we always know that something is wrong or something is right. How does that tie into the individual versus community? It seems like what we're talking about here is sometimes an individual's position could be at odds with that of his very community. And so, Uche, I want you to consider this. If somebody could be at odds with his or her very community, that suggests that one's beliefs, one's overall worldview is not completely determined by one's context, by one's community. If you're able to challenge the very belief systems that are being thrust upon you from a young age. So maybe there is some autonomy, natural, innate, built within every human being. The question becomes, do you value autonomy or do you value...
Tradition.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's something that you can go into even like the generations topic with, though, because each
Okay.
generation kind of they've gone through and looked at the generations and which ones changed mostly and which ones tried to keep it as same as like previous generations, and seeing that fluctuates throughout generations, and basically they're kind of seeing a pattern where it'll be like there'll be 3 generations that try to change it and then 1 generation that tries to keep it the same, but that fails because society around them's changed, and so the next generation is like a completely rebellious group and changes almost everything.
Yeah, like they have these cockamamie ideas, like let's break off clubs into groups.
I like that.
That's the new generation of student leadership. So tell me more about how you guys did it and recap what I missed before we go any further into this discussion. 'Cause I'm genuinely curious.
Well, we sectioned off in the classroom. We sectioned off the group into kind of like 4 different groups based on their rows, and we were just listening in on what each group had to say. And my group, we spoke kind of on. They were discussing a community as kind of like a machine, and each person is a gear in this machine, and so you would assume that if it's a machine, it has its own function. So if you tie it back to the people in the community, then they would have their own goal. So
I like this style.
a question could be: are communities a unified group of people who all share the same goal? And something I threw in just to see how it would be taken is, if a community is a machine that wants to achieve a purpose, what would a deviant be in that situation? Like a person, imagine you see gears turning and you stick a metal bar in the gear and then the gear can't turn anymore. Is that metal bar a part of the community, or is that metal bar, or where does it fit in that situation?
Yeah, imagine if Socrates were the metal bar.
Shout out Socrates.
Shout out Socrates. Shout out bars.
Mario.
Oh, shout out Mario.
Shout out Mario. He came
Mario.
through to the.
Yeah, speaking of cross-culture generations, across an old philosophy club executive board culture versus this new one, you might say. Yeah, Mario, the last year's treasurer, graced us with his presence. He's currently a philosophy major over at the University of North Texas. If you've listened to last season, you know that he is majoring in 10 different things and minoring in 40.
I love Mario.
But I think this is what he's
He
doing.
was the
I-
Socrates of this club.
Exactly,
He's
the
Socrates.
Socrates of this club. Yeah, and we may have a new Socrates of this club. We'll see.
Maybe.
He lost his voice yesterday. It was funny.
Big shoes to fill. He's filling them though.
Exactly.
Like my Brian.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Shout out Brian.
If only Brian and Mario got to actually interact.
That'd
yesterday.
be
'Cause I think
hilarious.
Brian left, and then Mario came
Yeah.
in.
They're the same person. They're the same person.
It's just Mario every year. He's dressed as somebody new.
They're
Mario
the
got a
same
costume.
person. I've never seen
Make
them
him
in the
tall.
same room.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You should have seen Brian in the class today. Oh my
They're the
God.
same person. I'm telling you.
Anyway.
Check their ID.
And Spirit, I think they are.
No, I think like period.
Oh, you mean literally?
Yeah.
Like you and Will Smith.
Yeah.
Okay, so cool. So then I think that's an interesting thing to consider, Uche, and I'm glad that your group talked about that. Emma, what were your experiences kind of going around?
It was pretty interesting. A lot of groups, I think that this benefited us. I think that there's a few little tweaks that should be made, like time management wise.
Don't worry, we're trying to replace the current communications officer. We'll make that. Oh, not that tweak. I'm sorry.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The joke
Um,
is she is the communication officer, so he told a joke like we're trying to replace.
It's not funny anymore.
Yeah, no, it's already been ruined.
Whenever you explain a joke.
It was
Anyways.
your joke.
But
We're on the
the
same
group that
team.
I kind of listened to and listened in and helped kind of guide their conversation, they brought up like your race that you're born with, but then the race you identify most closely with, and it's that different biological race versus the race you identify as, and it kind of led to.
Are we talking like swimming or running or what kind
No.
of race are we?
like
You mean like potato
African
sack?
American, Caucasian.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
terrible.
I thought you meant a different kind of race.
No. Anyway, so we were talking
I liked
about
it.
biological race, and then something I posed as a question to them is, how do they think like the genetic testing that's going around
Interesting.
impacts that and impacts the community? Does it benefit it? Does it harm it? Can it do either? How do they think that impacts it? And the general consensus was that they didn't really know. Nobody really had a determined answer, just possibly made people more accepting. But somebody else in the group brought up, if we're getting more and more accepting of transgender people, why can't we be more and more accepting of transracial?
Yeah, and I think that's the point that Louisa was making, Professor Benton was making when she brought up that the whole I can't remember the individual person's name.
Rachel Dolezal.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah, and well, what do you think, Emma? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Personally, this is just me. I don't think that transgender or transracial should really be too much of a thing that happens. Personally, I don't think it's the right decision to make, but
Oh, the phones are lighting up now, folks.
yeah.
Woo!
But I also understand that that's your choice to make, and I'm not gonna, harm you over that. I'm not gonna stop talking
Harm
to you or
you?
anything.
Okay.
Well, like people have a lot of fights, and people have actually
No, you're
gotten
right,
into physical fights over this kind of stuff. And
But they're
I'm not
usually
gonna
they're usually
make-
taller than 4'10". I'm sorry. continue.
But I'm not gonna argue
Right
with
there.
you over it. I'm gonna be
He's
like,
the-
oh, you made that decision. Okay,
He's the advisor.
let's move on. And that's the kind of way I am. I'll tell you that I don't agree with it, and that's it.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. I mean, you are entitled to your opinion, and I wonder if as many people who agree with you are as open-minded as you, because you can
Probably.
imagine people who could hold your opinion, but they may not hold their tongue.
Well, that kind of comes, I think, from my Christian background personally, is that I don't agree with it because of my Christianity. I think it's a sin. But I also know that in the
Wow.
Bible it says, love thy neighbor as you love yourself, and bring them in by love. So and it also tells you that we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So I've sinned. I know that. Every sin is considered equal. So your sin is no greater than my lying to my parents when I was 5. It was still a sin, or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I bring them in by love. Love
Okay.
'em.
No, so, and in that case, you're a strong embodiment of your principles. I think that's respectable. Does anybody else want to counter this this heretic? No, look, I do think that's interesting that your group went in that direction, and I think it's interesting that your group went the kind of more machinist route, so to speak, because again, it seems like Uche, your collection of club members were talking about the function of society. What is the point of being in a society, and if does society make room for those people who can cause the machine to stop and maybe rethink itself? Yours, I think, is much more contemporary in terms of what y'all were talking about, less universal. Something that's happening right now. This idea of being able to choose literally everything about yourself, even the things. Excuse me. I'm trying to speak this out.
Jesus
I didn't take my heartburn medication today, and I've had 10 cups of coffee. So yeah, I might spit up right over the microphone. And if I do spit up over this microphone, I
You'll be
want.
out.
I want us to freeze frame this shot and make it
Make
the
it the
profile picture.
thumbnail.
Just
Exactly.
Try somewhere
Funny.
else, please. You have the soundboard under you too.
It would ruin everything.
Go ahead.
Just turn the other way. That's all I
This
ask.
is
Back
your room
up
for the
enough.
hour. You can do whatever
Whatever.
you want.
Does anybody on campus who's listening to this have any Nexium? or I'll even take Tums. Anyways, no,
I think you can get Tums in the bookstore.
Oh, maybe
I think they have some.
Tums.
I think they do too.
Okay.
They have
don't know.
Advil and stuff there too.
We're gonna take a quick break and run to the
If
bookstore.
they
So listen, I'm only
we can run it
Sponsor
while you're
us,
gone.
Tom.
Go
Sponsor
ahead.
us.
sponsor us, Tums.
We'll run the show while you're gone. We'll talk everything positive about you. No, we won't.
I keep. Well, nobody ever does. I
I'll
keep
keep a
saying
rain check on that.
I'm canceling the show. That's perfect.
That's your only option left.
I think it's interesting because you could potentially say that maybe never before until now has there been an opportunity for you to take such charge over who you are as an individual, and does the in doing so, does that throw into tumult the stability of a community, the stability of an individual? And another way of saying it is this: if an individual is part of a community, is that individual obligated to
Yeah.
uphold the values and the moral imperatives, more specifically, of a community, or is that person, even as a member of the community, empowered to challenge the very tenets held by that community so as to refine them? Or is that person, as Uche said, simply considered a deviant?
I think it is considered a deviant. Just anybody that goes against the total would be considered a deviant, whether they're right or wrong. It's almost the same question as you're asking, because a deviant act could be something that goes against the norms, but for that person, it's something that makes them happy. So would an individual be obligated to fulfill the needs of the community, but make themselves unhappy at the same time, or would they be obligated to make themselves happy and I basically say screw the needs of the community? Which one is more dire for the individual to do?
Well, then we did, when we came back as a group at the end, talk about the deviant thing again. And so a deviant, I thought we were just defining as someone who was a bit different, wasn't quite uniform with the group. But we described that it could be positive or negative, where in like a positive sense, Martin Luther King Jr. was different. He stood out,
Yeah.
but he created positive change and got a lot of people behind him in that sense.
Well, that's your opinion.
Whereas Hitler
Of course.
was not necessary. And those were the examples that got brought up yesterday.
Hitler was not necessary. That is the
Not
kindest way to
necessarily.
possibly put that.
He was a mean guy.
unnecessary.
He was mean.
Jesus.
No,
He
it
was a
wasn't
You really are
necessarily the
kind.
nice
You really are tolerant.
Hitler was a jerk.
I mean, I think
guy's
we can
mean.
all agree that he wasn't necessarily the nicest guy around.
I think so.
And
opinion.
but you never want the people who, for some reasons, like Hitler, to come back after you. Nobody target me, please.
You're gonna get, like,
Listen to her
assassinated by
backpedal.
the
This is
mob.
hilarious. Okay, no, so that's fascinating. I want to, in light of that conversation and that point, I want to talk. Okay, so again, let's really go down that path. Okay, so Martin Luther King, the example you have is being a deviant, but nowadays he's looked upon as one of the greatest Americans of all time. So how could he be a deviant of his time and then, in retrospect, due to posterity, be considered? No, he was embodying the very ideals of the nation when at the time they didn't agree with that. They thought he was deviating therefrom.
I think it could just be the development of the community itself. I think if you want to look at it as deviance to the entire whole, you can say that Martin Luther King, he was such a brave deviant that he inspired people who followed the norms to become deviant. He basically changed their mindset to the point where he was the 1%, but through his speaking and through his speeches, he changed the other 99% over to his side, or changed a majority of the other side over to his side. And it's kind of like he's a deviant, he started preaching to the people, and then more deviants started coming out, to the point where being a deviant is now the norm, and being what was considered the norm before is now the deviant.
Interesting.
So basically, it's all about the situation for being deviant or not.
Yeah.
Depends on the context.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I also-
Jinx. Sorry.
I also think on that, that wouldn't Martin Luther King Jr. still be considered a deviant to that group even, because he was outspoken, he was leading the masses, he was not one of the masses, he was in front of the masses, he was preaching, he was making speeches, all that. He was still a deviant even once he had people following him. Following him was now the new norm, but he was not the norm himself because he was leading it.
Well, what's interesting is that I was actually talking with Ashigal, and she was saying that she wished that MLK would just shut the hell up. Do you want to expand upon that?
I,
Oh my god. I did not say
Oh,
that.
my I was
Okay.
misremembering. I'm sorry. That was somebody else.
I think it's just
That
like
was Raul.
it's just like
Shout out, Ryan.
Mhm.
it's just like the celebrities. They are mostly the introverts, but to the world it seems like they are the ones who can communicate with the whole bunch of people. But in their real lives, they are the ones who are the most loneliest because they don't get to interact with the people as we think they do.
It's the philosopher's life.
Yep.
Very isolated.
I'm talking about the celebrities, well.
Oh, you
Manzy's a
the exact
celebrity.
opposite.
Man,
Are you a
got-
celebrity?
You get a good amount of views. YouTube.
That's true. I think we got 15 views last week.
Damn,
Hello.
that's almost an entire classroom,
Like,
dude.
we are watching it again.
I'm a celebrity.
Well, again, the word celebrity comes from.
My
this
name's
is-
Will Smith.
This is interesting. The word celebrity comes from, again, celebration, which is to say, who are the individuals that your community as a whole celebrate? Raise up and say, we should celebrate these people because, well, of X, Y, and Z. They seem to embody this, that, or the other thing that we find laudable. I want to go back to that quote Benita had mentioned earlier, and this ties in to I think the very first thing you said, Ali, in response to Uche's point there. Specifically, it seems as though in order for one to be happy, in order for one to flourish, in order for, one's I have a dream speech to become reality, you need the context of a community. You need other people to help you accomplish your individual goals. So it seems like an individual apart from a community isn't human. Doesn't seem as though he or she can. I mean, try to imagine your goals in life. Do they involve other people?
Nope.
No.
Some don't. I mean, if it's a goal for me to eat
Well, mass
spaghetti
genocide.
tonight, I can make spaghetti
Someone
and make
had
that
to make it,
happen.
though.
Where are you getting that spaghetti from, exactly?
I mean, if I wanted to have a garden and live off on my own, I could. But that's something.
Where do you
that
buy
I
those
can make.
seeds? The point, I'm making a serious point here, is that you don't
Let's-
realize.
I mean, at some point, you need to have some backing at some beginning, but at some point, you can make goals after having that, like years ago. Say, I've been running my own garden for 20 years, which obviously I haven't. But if I had, I'm only 20 years old. How could I be running a garden?
Yeah.
If you really meant to, if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I was running a garden when I was a newborn. Good job, Uche.
Mm.
Show me yours.
I have a
Um,
garden. I'm
But
kidding. Go
I
on.
mean, at
She's
some
laying
point, I
into you
needed
right now. Jeez.
some beginning. You have to have something to start your foundations off of. But isn't that why we're born into families? Isn't that why we have a beginning to back us with our parents
Oh, I
or
see.
with a community backing us to start? So, I mean, I think that society, I think the way the human life is placed out and designed already makes way for us to be part of even a small community to get a start, to get that help, to get us rolling, and then we can move off and take care of ourselves. And that's the whole point of, like, if we're going back to the family discussion, that's when you move out. That's when you buy your own place to live.
I think that makes a lot of
Let's
sense.
be honest and say that let the truth within me shines the truth within you.
Okay.
It's not relevant to what we're talking, but still,
Namaste.
I got it from a yoga class, so I like
That's
to
exactly
throw it
right.
out. Thank you.
Superman's taking yoga. I think it's the Superman references to a previous episode.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what you're talking about.
I think you were there for that one. Go back and look.
Maybe.
I think it's the last time you were in the studio was that
Yeah.
episode. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
By the way, I think that episode has more views than any other episode we have.
Yeah.
So we found the
Yeah.
common ingredients. I'll say this, guys. Nietzsche makes this point as well. This idea that you can learn if you're of a community that teaches you to question values and traditions. You could be a part of the community while deviating from the community. So example of this might be something like Christianity. Christianity teaches you to be honest, to be sincere, to not fall prey to self-deception. But if you really internalize and embody those values of sincerity and honesty, that might compel you to ask yourself, am I truly a believer? Am I sincerely believing in God? What you might find is that you don't. So because of the values you've learned from the religion, you now must take those so seriously that you depart from that religion. But you learned from the very community that you are deviating from and now moving beyond. Just one example. I mean, just as easily, you could look deeper into your beliefs and see, oh no, now I believe them for the right reasons. I don't just believe them because I inherited them. I believe them because I'm studying them. And this is all, I'm just pantomiming Nietzsche here, but he gets at this idea that you can come from a community that actually encourages you to question the values of the community and a healthy, constantly refinement sort of process there. And you can apply that to an individual. The danger is when you come from a community that compels you not to think about these things, or you find communities that compel you to consider alternatives. I mean, be sincere with yourself. Always be honest. Well, I honestly have doubts. Oh, but thou shalt love no other gods before thyself, before thy God. Excuse not thyself. Well, that was literally the
Thyself.
exact.
Wow.
I could
Wow.
not. That was an interesting Freudian slip, huh?
Yeah.
Dang,
You heard it
man.
here
That's
first.
very
Nancy
telling.
wants to be a god.
That's how you think of
He
yourself?
considers himself the god.
I'm the GPC, God of Philosophy Club. Point being is this, and I turn it over to my disciples here.
I'm the Pope.
It's possible to be both a deviant and the perfect embodiment of a culture, it seems to me. And so this idea of individual community, it certainly tends to overlap. I mean, the point of that Hegel quote, if you received the email that I sent out to faculty and staff, was that if you just live on your own as an autonomous individual person and you care not about getting involved in communities, then the cap to your happiness is only so far. But in order to really accomplish the things you want, in order to be happy in the sense of you flourish on a much wider level, you need a community. And what's more, you should prefer a community. You should want that. Tocqueville makes this point in his book, Democracy in America. When he says what makes democracy in America so unique from everything else is the fact that people want to be involved in this community, among, numerous other things. But it's playing your role in a community where a human being will be able to be its happiest. That's the claim. Does that tie back to nature and things like that? I don't know.
I think that part of it is that as you grow in a community, it's in most communities it should be justified that as you grow in a community, you should eventually take to a point where you're now leading newer people to the community, or you're teaching or you're questioning, because as I said, for example, with the family situation, once you become a teenager, you start questioning, why do they tell you these rules? Why do I have to do that specific thing?
Adolescence.
And then when you move out, you're now leaving that community and you start your own family and you become the leader of a new community.
If you choose to.
Or you become the leader of your own community when you're away from a family situation if you didn't start a new family. Or with religion, you're taught for so many years, you're going to Sunday school, you're going to church, whatever you do as part of a church, then eventually you start to question, why do I believe these things? Why are these things the way they are? And you move on from there. And then eventually maybe you start to teach new people. You get asked to lead the Sunday school class, or you get asked to
Run the
help
philosophy
run
club
a-
meetings.
Yeah, anything like that. So I think in any community that's truly beneficial to you and helps benefit you, you eventually start putting input in. Just like we're part of the United States.
It's very well said.
And then when we hit 18 years old, you're told now you get to vote for who's running your country. You get to input in on your country. You get to input in on that community once you've been raised in it for long enough.
Yeah.
So I heard something from someone, I can't remember. So I heard
Very
that
credible.
Yeah, right?
leaders create leaders. They do not create followers. But the ones we see today, are those leaders the ones who are going to create more leaders, inspire them to become leaders, or are just leading behind them the followers?
That's great. In order to lead, you have to follow your dreams.
Yeah, but I think
Nobody respond to him. Give it a moment of silence.
What were you going to say?
yeah, but
Well, that's all the time we have, folks. Thanks for checking. No, I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna talk.
No, please. We've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, and now I forgot what I was gonna say. Thank you.
He has that
Happens.
touch on people.
Teacher
No,
of the
I
year.
was gonna say that. So yeah, leaders create leaders, but nowadays people actually choose to follow because it's easier to follow than to be a leader.
I think that's always.
Yeah, exactly.
So it comes back to us and our,
The people.
we the people. Yeah.
To the people.
And what's so interesting is that you will want to lead. Presumably, I mean, look, there's the term the reluctant leader,
For the
but
people.
you will want to lead other people, especially if it has to do with something you are passionate about or invested in. Guys, I'm very happy reading philosophy by myself. And you know, I'm happy spending 4 hours a day if I had the opportunity back when I was taking classes in grad school to just read it by myself. It's very isolating, but it's very pleasurable. I
That's
enjoy
depressing.
it. But no, see,
That
I
sounds
disagree.
nice.
I disagree.
But still, you're interacting with your book, so you're still in a community, aren't you?
I suppose, but it's
But
a
you'd
commu-
rather spread it with other people.
I'd rather talk about it with other people. I have
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot more fun in the philosophy club than I do reading books by myself. That's just the truth. And it's the same thing with being in a classroom with other people. There's something about the communal aspect of things that perhaps really enriches
Yeah.
an individual's experience, assuming the community is a rational and a just and a moral one. But how often is that possible? I mean, that in turn gives way to much larger questions, it would seem to me.
That was nice. That was a nice little heartfelt comment, Manzi.
Yeah, thank you. It's true. I reveal my soul to you people. I once had a philosophy professor. I took this class called Love and Friendship as an undergrad. I mentioned this before, where I took it with 3 of my friends, and it was intense philosophical studies into the nature of love and friendship. And in the end of the class, we found out we just actually weren't friends with any. We just weren't friends. We weren't really friends. But the point being is this: still waiting on that first friend of mine to I can one day make.
Aw.
I'm hoping it's you, Will Smith.
It is.
I think.
You can collab in the next movie.
Can I be Kevin Hart in that movie? What was it called?
Are you transracial?
Central Intelligence.
No, Central Intelligence.
That doesn't have Will Smith in it, but it's a funny movie.
No, it's the
If it
Kevin
doesn't have
Hart-
Will Smith in it, it's not a funny movie.
It's a funny
What's the
movie.
Kevin Hart Will Smith movie?
I
Not
don't know
Kevin
about
Hart.
that.
Kevin James. Kevin James.
I don't know who that
Not
is.
Kevin Hart. Kevin James.
Wow.
I want to say it begins in H. Huxtable? No,
I
that's
have
not
no
right.
idea.
I have no idea. either.
Nobody knows what you're talking about
Anyways,
anymore,
Did you have a
Manzi.
point that you?
I totally
were you
just.
talking-
I
your
should-
friends and your.
I should have
love
put
and
while I was on,
friendship class?
I was on
Your
top,
love-
man. I
your
should have
love-
walked away. Really?
your
Okay,
love and
so
friendship
the
class.
point being is this: I once had a professor who told the class, a class full of undergrads, "You guys know me better than my own mother knows me."
Aw.
I remember everybody being like, "What a weirdo!
That's
what a
nice.
weird thing to say. Why would he say that to us? I barely know. I don't even like this guy." But the point he was making is that he and sharing, his passion with us and his particular approach and perspective on that passion and engaging others who are of a like mind and are interested in it and bringing them forward. He's kind of showing the part of himself that is truly himself, which is to say that the part of himself that he identifies with the most, that he can never really show to like his family. So the reason I bring this up is because of the conversation we had earlier. This idea that, just because you come from a family doesn't necessarily mean that you have to identify with that family as a salient feature of your existence. That you choose to a very to a very concrete extent, I should say, not just hypothetically. You realistically choose who your family is, who your friends are, what your passions are, what your morals are. And society serves as a springboard, or maybe that's too bit of a term. Society serves as a sounding board, maybe a better way to put it. The pun intended, because I'm staring at one and I don't know how to operate it either. But society serves as a sounding board for providing you with suggestions. Here's what we take morality to be. And it shows in our legality and our laws, and it shows in our codes of conduct and our civil behavior.
So basically, these little philosophical chit chats are a part of food to our soul and body and mind.
Yeah.
I mean,
we could do something better than calling them chit chats.
yeah.
So these kind of boring BS things that we do, they're actually nourishment for our spirit. Yeah, dude, definitely. I think you're wise to see that. Absolutely. All right, guys. So we're actually
I wanna
like
do a
11
couple
minutes over.
Shout outs real quick.
So yeah, we're gonna wrap up right now, as a matter of fact. So we'll do a few shout outs, and then we'll make way for for our next guest here. Or not our next
Dave
guest, but
the
the next program.
Shockwave.
Yeah, the Rock Shop. So let's say our farewells for the week, and drop any plugs if there are any
Adios.
meetings for any clubs you're affiliated in other than Philosophy Club. Ali, say goodbye.
goodbye.
I hope you come back,
Thank
buddy.
you so much for
It wa-
having me.
Shout
Definitely,
out
it was great
Ali.
seeing you.
Yeah,
I know
come
you're taking
back
online
if you're
classes
free.
primarily, but try to drop by whenever you can.
Sure.
Goodbye. I'll be probably here next week too, hopefully.
Maybe you'll
Nice.
say more than 10 words.
Okay.
Oh God! I honestly, I like having you here, and I hope you do come back
Stop
because I know you got a lot
lying,
to say.
man.
Do
See,
you really?
Yeah, because here's the thing.
was
She,
talking
I'll
about
say
you.
this. I'll say this about my student here. What's your name again? Ice Mountain.
Oh.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm leaving.
She speaks a lot with her eyes. I see you in class. You're thinking about stuff,
Yes.
and you have a lot going on. It's like a quiet storm.
Yeah, and I do have big eyes, so
Well,
really easy to
what I'm
see.
trying to say is they're not glazed over like you're thinking about other things. You're totally engaged, and
Yeah.
and so I think there's a lot of promise there.
That's nice.
Yeah,
Any-
I like that class, and
I'm happy.
I get to rethink about a lot of things, and it's sometimes really hard.
I love that she said rethink because again she's thought about these things before this class. and
Yeah,
now she's
but like
rethinking
it's
them.
really hard now that I know. Anyways, I'm not gonna go in depth with our ethics class again, but yeah,
Loss of innocence.
Gotcha.
loss of innocence is a hard thing, guys.
Yes. That's the name of the class, FYI.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, do you have any club meetings coming up for your other clubs, debate club or honors? or anything?
Well, for honors, for debate club, we have a meeting tomorrow, and there's gonna be an actual debate.
Yeah, plug it.
I can't remember the room name right now, but
Fantastic.
C246.
That's like my plugs.
C246. I'm pretty sure.
It's
See?
are you
That's
talking
what
about the gun rights debate?
Yeah.
no, not
Is
that
it-
Oh,
one.
no?
That's gonna be
My
2
bad.
weeks from now.
That's October 12th from
Yeah.
2:15 to 3:15.
Yeah, and it's gonna be between Turning Point USA and the debate club, and Brian and Andrew are gonna debate about the gun control.
And two clubs on campus, Turning Point USA and the
Yep.
debate club.
Hmm.
And we're gonna eventually do something with philosophy club and debate club.
Well, yeah, well, we did something already earlier this semester, but yeah, I'd love to revisit it.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, for those of you who know, check our Facebook page. Go to Facebook and search Richland Philosophy Club. You can
Mhm.
see pictures of our Philosophy Club secretary, Julio, debating Brian, the vice president of the
Olave.
debate.
Oh yes, we did that. Yeah.
And, your own Professor Manzi was the faculty moderator thereof.
Yeah.
Uche.
Bye. See you later. See you next week.
Want to plug the Philosophy Club?
Shout out to the Philosophy Club. I don't know if you've heard of it. We have a radio show. We do it every Wednesdays. You should tune in. Yeah.
We got some big plans coming up this
Big
semester,
plans.
guys. Y'all will
Stay
get excited.
tuned. Shout out Conor McGregor.
The lost episode, just a teaser. Yes.
I have something to tell you guys. So for November.
Well, maybe next week because your turn is coming.
Okay. No, please.
Okay.
Okay, for November, I was thinking maybe you could have like a Richland Thanksgiving. Like, no,
What do
listen.
you mean? I don't know what that means.
No, this is like a really good idea. So we have like so many different people on campus, right? We are really diverse campus, right?
I didn't
So
know
we
that.
could have our own like Richland Thanksgiving.
A philosophy club's giving.
No,
Not
like
just
we have
philosophy,
not
though,
just
but
philosophy.
it's a multicultural
Yeah.
Richland Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so maybe we can kind of team up.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I love that idea. You know, the Philosophy Club is sponsoring a booth in an upcoming event taking place in November. We're sponsoring a, what is it, Come and Chill booth? Sit and Chill booth? About raising awareness to alleviate the stigma of mental illness as well as
Oh, with the
suicide
counseling
prevention.
services?
The counseling services,
Yeah.
yeah. We're linking up with them.
Yeah.
Should be. I'm going to say more about that when details are elaborated upon further. Emma.
Okay, so just a couple of things. The Turning Point USA versus Richland Debate Club on October 12th from 2:15 to 3:15 is in the studio newsroom over
Okay.
gun rights. We have a Facebook and a Twitter. Facebook, just look up Richland Philosophy Club. You'll find our group. It'll have a picture of Hannah and I,
The VP.
and also our T-shirt design from our previous year.
Which you
Twitter-
can still get, I will say. Those are still on sale, $10 a pop. Was
and
that
then-
what we charging? $10?
I think so.
I get them.
That's what it's been. That's what you
Jesus
took from
Christ,
me. At
man.
least.
Okay, that's okay, cool.
Yeah, I paid 15.
Twitter, it's RLC Philosophy Club. You can tweet us at RLC Philosophy. And then if you're interested in joining our email list that I've been sending out emails to, just email with your name and say, hey, please put me on the email list or ask any questions you have about it. That's just philosophy.club.rlc@gmail.com.
Nice.
So
Cool.
all of those are things that can happen. And so if you're listening to this, you're probably listening from the richlandstudentmedia.com.
Where you can live stream us every Wednesday, 2 to 3. Awesome. And now, guys, before I go, I want to give one little quick plug. I don't know if you're in the Garland area, wherever y'all live, but this Friday and Saturday in the Garland Civic Theater, there's a play that's very philosophical that I will be attending on Friday. It's called "And Miss Reardon Drinks a Little." It has to do with loss of innocence. It's this idea of, three sisters' mother passes away, and they all have jobs in education. One is a teacher, one is a principal, one is a superintendent, and they all deal with the loss of their mother in different ways. It really resonates, especially with my Loss of Innocence class, which again is a learning community in the honors program. So check that out. It's 8 o'clock Friday, Saturday, and then that's it. Okay, guys. So once again, the Philosophy Club meets every Tuesday from 2 to 3 in EO 76. We broadcast from EO 11, which is KDUX Studios, every Wednesday from 2 to 3. You can find us at richlandstudentmedia.com, and you are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show are our own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCCD. We're just about ready to wrap up the requack. Joking, of course. Thanks to my guests. I hope you all come back. It's good seeing you. Shout out to Mario, who came to the club meeting yesterday. And stay tuned for Rock Shop coming up next. Take care, y'all. See you next Wednesday.
Adios.
Thank you.